Lost track of time there. I might have been duping myself. So the question today is, did the Eagles organization dupe us fans? What do I mean by that? Did they dupe us? Did they fool us into thinking that this Eagles team was a great team this year? I've come under some criticism lately for actually criticizing Howie Roseman over some of the coordinators and coaches and players. So we're going to dive into that, more about the locker room drama, power rankings, Sixers. Lots on the agenda today. Trending in the AM with your thoughts and opinions is live in 30 seconds. And a very good morning, everybody. Welcome to Trending in the AM right here on Philadelphia Sports Network. We're live, Facebook, YouTube. You know the drill. It's free to do it. Hit that like button. Hit that share button. Hit that subscribe, follow button, depending on where you're watching. I would greatly appreciate it. It would mean the world to me. The more likes, the more shares, the more people that can get in on the conversation. And yes, happy hump date, everybody. It is Wednesday, December 13th, and middle of the week here. We're getting closer and closer to Christmas here, and closer to the year ending, which means we're closer and closer to the NFL season ending and the playoffs being here. And I got lots to talk about today, some different angles to take towards some of these conversations, some angles that other people aren't talking about. So we're going to talk Eagles, obviously, today, as we inch closer, slowly, to Monday Night Football in Seattle. But we're going to talk about that. Still waiting to hear from Justin Crosby. May have our weekly segment with Justin Crosby at 9 a.m., 15 minutes of Sixers updates from him. I know he was down at the Wells Fargo Center for Monday's drubbing of the Washington Wizards. So we'll catch up with him on that at about 9 o'clock. I got my power rankings that are updated. We are going to share and discuss those. And, of course, your opinions and thoughts on everything. And right off the bat, before I say anything about Howie Roseman, the first comment already coming in. And how you doing this morning, Stoney? 2494. Howie has nothing to do with the team's performance. It's the predictable scheme. Even the players aren't buying into the game plan. And I know that's the popular way to look at it right now. It's the scheme. It's the scheme. It's the scheme. And while I respect that thought process, and the schemes are not perfect, without a doubt. Some of it's on the coaches for creating those schemes. Some of it's on the players for not executing well, Stoney. But also, Howie is the one that spent how much money on James Bradbury and Darius Slay, aging veterans, did not see the aging coming into play, and spent nothing on linebackers, nothing on safeties. We loved his draft this year, but he could have had Brian Branch over Nolan Smith. Nolan Smith was a pick for the future. Brian Branch would fix things right now. He's the one that went out there and signed in the offseason and throughout the season aging guys that aren't what they used to be, but also awfully injury-prone guys. I mean, you look at all the injuries we've had on the defense, which the main question, everyone wants to talk about the offense, but I still think the defense is the bigger problem. So my eyes are going to the defense when I talk about this duping us fans thing here. And I look at this defense, and I look at Zach Cunningham. I look at the draft pick of Nakobe Dean. I look at Avonte Maddox. I look at Justin Evans, who I don't even think has played since week 2. All these guys are injury-prone guys. All these guys have question marks. He spent a lot of money on the defensive line. And the defensive line is really good. We're one of the top run-stopping teams in the NFL. But didn't spend any money on linebackers, safeties, cornerbacks, spent the money in the wrong places. I'm just asking the question that came into my mind. Did they dupe us? Did they fool us into thinking they were a good team? And yes, I am the only one talking about Howie Roseman right now. But it's what's on my mind today. Peanut saying, I'm done with the late games. Monday night games should start at 6:30 for us. Dude, you know my opinion on this. I've been preaching this for ages. I hate them. We've got one more 1:00 game upcoming. We've only had 2 so far. 13 games. We're 10-3, and we've had 2 1:00 games. My old ass can't stay up late much longer. I'm losing it, man. I need some consistent sleep schedule. I know it's all about the bottom dollar in the NFL, and they don't care about me and you sleeping, but I care about my sleep, and it ain't working right now. Nolan Smith swinging a miss. Now, I don't think Nolan Smith was a bad pick for Howie Roseman and the Eagles. I knew the point of Nolan Smith was for the future, not for 2023. Nolan Smith was brought here as insurance behind Hassan Reddick, insurance behind Brandon Graham, insurance behind Derek Barnett, all the other guys that are Josh Sweat. He was here as insurance and for the future. And I'm not writing Nolan Smith off yet. And I'm not saying it was a bad choice. Getting him at 30 was a steal. But Howie Roseman constantly overvaluing certain positions and undervaluing others might have bit him in the ass this time. Brian Branch looks like the real deal in Detroit. And could you imagine Brian Branch instead of Justin Evans next to Reed Blankenship to start the year? Could you imagine Brian Branch now against opposite of Reed Blankenship with Kevin Byard? Maybe we wouldn't have had a trade for Kevin Byard if we had Brian Branch here. Maybe we would have been able to upgrade another position sooner. Brian Branch might have been the right play there. I wanted him, but Nolan Smith was a good value pick. So I don't know if it was a swing and miss like you say there. It's a swing and miss for the immediate help. Now, 2 or 3 years from now, we might totally be thinking differently there. Howie can only do so much in the offseason. The team is overperforming if you look at what most post-Super Bowl teams fall victim to. We will be all right. They're overperforming. I think that's an interesting way to look at it. Because, yes, Super Bowl teams that lose in the Super Bowl do tend to struggle the following year. I get that. But Howie could have done differently. I know hindsight's not fun to look at. Hindsight's not fun to discuss. But maybe Howie just made some missteps. But we saw it superficially, and it looked like a really, really great team. It looked like after a few weeks we were going to be unstoppable. So the organization, the coaches, the players, it's not like the question of the day isn't just on Howie Roseman. It's on everybody. Did everybody dupe us into thinking this was a great team? And I think some of it goes into just the simple fact that our schedule has been so difficult. I mean, I know a lot of people aren't Elliott Shore Park fans. I don't mind the guy. The guy puts out some interesting content from time to time. You know, and what he's been doing a lot of lately, content wise or point wise, is really trying to make people understand what this team has gone up against over the last 5 to 6 weeks. The rankings of opposing defenses the last 5 weeks. The rankings of opposing offenses the last 5 weeks or so. When you really put it in perspective, maybe we shouldn't be panicking at all. Maybe we shouldn't be calling into question the coordinators or Howie or Jalen Hurts or anybody at all. Maybe we should realize we got to this point of the season and we're 10-3. And before the season started, if we would have said this, we would have been calling this a Super Bowl winning team or capable winning team. But right now, because of the way we lost the last 2 weeks, everything is changing. Were we duped into thinking that this was a unbreakable group of guys held together at the top by Jalen Hurts and Nick Sirianni? I mean, the rumors are running rampant about the leaks in the locker room, the upset people in the locker room. And this so to rephrase the opening topic and the question of the day, it's not just Howie Roseman that could have duped us. That's why I say the organization. Everybody duped us into thinking that this was a great team. Is it true? I mean, you think about all the numbers that are all over the place about where our opponents face. Maybe I am so far off base with this. There's a very good possibility that I'm off base with this idea, with this thought process. But it's where I'm thinking right now. It's how I feel right now, for sure. Howie's batting average is still elite. Howie Hollywood Roseman. Yeah, I mean, look, Howie is a damn good general manager. There's no doubt about it. He's had more wins than losses, especially lately in his decision making the last few years. There's no doubt about it. But to think that Howie Roseman can't be better, Howie Roseman's already learned and grown from previous mistakes. Well, now he's got to learn and grow more from the mistakes that we are clearly seeing right now. My man Victor Williams, you guys all know him on Twitter. He don't like me too much, but that was all old school Phil little beef I got into with him. But I mean, he put up one here. Howie Roseman and the Eagles let last year's cornerback coach Denard Wilson go. I guess he wanted to be the defensive coordinator. They went Sean Desai. The Eagles' secondary last year was the number one secondary in football, giving up 171 yards a game. This year, they're 28th, giving up almost 260. Okay? The Ravens is where he's the cornerbacks coach at now. Last year, were the 22nd ranked passing defense. This year, with him as their defensive coordinator, 4th. Another misstep. Another misstep this offseason from Howie Roseman in this organization. And I find it so odd and random that we're not allowed to criticize Howie Roseman for these mistakes. That we're not allowed to criticize him for misstepping left and right this offseason. I don't think it's as off base as people think. Howie Roseman has done a great job getting Jalen Carter, getting Jordan Davis, getting Tyler Steen and Cam Jurgens and Sidney Brown. He's had really good drafts lately. Devontae Smith. But some of his money distribution is just not good enough. I'm looking at the cap hit of every player this year. The second highest cap hit this year on this team is Darius Slay. We could have gotten rid of him. Now, I don't know what we would have done if we did get rid of him, but he doesn't have to be here this year. I was looking at next year's cap allocation on where we are. The money that's due to some people next year. Kevin Byard. Oh, it's immense. Darius Slay. It's so much. Avonte Maddox, the cap hit next year. Huge. Brandon Graham, big cap hit next year. But you could probably get out for him. No, you can't get out from him too cheaply. James Bradbury. I mean, some of these cap hits next year are not good. So Howie Roseman made some missteps in building this team. Maybe he went all in to an extent because he saw the Super Bowl window and wanted to capitalize on it after last year's success. But maybe he did not put enough big picture thought into the construction of this team, which gave us this false hope, gave the coaches and players a false hope that they kept doing it. Where's Devontae Smith? What do you mean where? You keep bringing up this Devontae Smith thing week in and week out. Devontae Smith ain't going nowhere. Devontae Smith is here to stay long term. He'll be up for an extension this offseason, but he's still on his rookie deal, so he ain't going nowhere. So I think you got to understand that part of it. He ain't going nowhere. A.J. Brown will be gone before Devontae Smith. And A.J. Brown ain't going anywhere either. That's Devontae Smith is one of Howie Roseman's wins at this point. I don't know. So getting onto the A.J. Brown. And it seems like some of these rumors, there's rumors on the rumors. The rumors of the fractured locker room, which we discussed of, which we were duped into believing would never happen. We were duped into believing that there's no way that this locker room could fracture in any way because we have such great leaders all throughout this team, great veteran presence all throughout this team. But the locker room is fractured. So we were duped again. So it's not just one person that duped this Eagles team. It's a lot. And now the rumors of the fractured locker room are having rumors that are sprouting rumors of their own. And it's A.J. Brown. That's one of the people that's frustrated, that's leaking information, talking about how bad the offense is right now. Calling into question a lot of what's being called play-wise. Well, if A.J. Brown's leaking information, A.J. Brown's got to realize if he doesn't drop a big pass, if A.J. Brown doesn't fumble a pass, the game on Sunday turns out differently. Devontae Smith has to realize that. I mean, just think about it. So I brought it up yesterday, and my man ESP brought it up. Oh, that's a different one from ESP. I got far too many ESP tweets that I'm sharing lately. I never thought I would share this many. But just think about it. 5 wasted opportunities for the Eagles on Sunday. Jalen Hurts fumbles on Dallas' 31-yard line. Could have resulted in plays. A.J. Brown had a penalty, negated a 14-yard gain to Goddard, and it changes the play from 1st and 10 to 1st and 20. From the 7-yard line to the 31-yard line. Drop pass by A.J. Brown at the 2-yard line. Big gain. Would have set up a scoring opportunity. Devontae Smith dropped the touchdown pass in the end zone. A.J. Brown fumbled at Dallas' 37. Devontae fumbled at Dallas' 13. How many points were left on the field in those 6 plays? But yet it's the coordinators. It's the play calling. Now, yes, the play calling isn't great. I get that. But the problem isn't just the play call. The problem is the execution of the plays being called. So while everybody wants to blame the last 2 losses on Brian Johnson, there's also blame that's got to go on Sean Desai, obviously. There's got to be blame that goes on Howie Roseman, on Nick Sirianni, on Jalen Hurts, on A.J. Brown, on Devontae Smith, on Darius Slay, on James Bradbury, on everybody. This unbreakable unit is breaking like that. This Super Bowl contending team is breaking like that. And all this led me to thinking about us being duped. Losing our OC and DC had more of an effect than we'd like to admit. Absolutely. I mean, you look at Shane Steichen and what he is doing, not just now, but in his career as a whole with young quarterbacks. It's pretty special. Shane Steichen is definitely undervalued. Everybody spent a lot of time talking about quarterback coach Brian Johnson, what he did to help grow Jalen Hurts. Well, how much of it was Brian Johnson? And how much of it was Shane Steichen? How much of the defense's success and failures this year was, I know it's like even a more unpopular opinion, but how much of this Eagles' success and now this year lack of success was the switch from Jonathan Gannon to Sean Desai? We crushed Jonathan Gannon in this city, and rightfully so. So distracted in the Super Bowl may have single-handedly been the biggest reason we lost the Super Bowl. But we don't get to the Super Bowl without Jonathan Gannon. And Jonathan Gannon, you could see, is running a different scheme and system in Arizona defensively. He flipped what he wanted to do last year to better accommodate the personnel he was given. Sean Desai is the opposite. Sean Desai, who doesn't get enough criticism. Sean Desai is, this is my system. That is all I want to run. You guys got to figure out how to execute what I'm calling. Now, yeah, most games at halftime, he flips it up a little bit, and they play better in the second half. But why not start with a different scheme in the beginning? Everything seems to getting blamed on Brian Johnson. If anything, Eagles Nation is duping us into believing Brian Johnson is the biggest issue here. Hell, Liam, Bossman at PSN. Eagles Outsider podcast right here, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday night. His article, 5 Things to Fix, that he put out yesterday. Number 1, it was calling out Brian Johnson. Everybody is blaming the entire Eagles' struggles, mainly the last 2 weeks, on Brian Johnson. And Brian Johnson is not perfect at all. But Brian Johnson, in my opinion, if I had to do my power rankings of the biggest issues, top 10 biggest issues with this team right now, Brian Johnson would be at the bottom of the top 10 biggest issues, without a doubt. There's no way that Brian Johnson deserves to continually to get criticized so heavily for the struggles of this team. What's up, mister? If A.J. Brown wants to have more influence on the play calling, he should make sure he doesn't fumble and drop passes. Then, in his opinion, exactly. If he is the one that made the leap to Derek Gunn, whatever, that's a problem, obviously. And I've brought this up and I've discussed this privately with other people that A.J. Brown at some point was going to be a problem. Whatever. He's an immensely talented guy. If you want a guy like him, you're going to have drama. You know what I mean? The Raiders are dealing with it with Devontae Adams. They wanted the big name guy. Now he's questioning things and calling people out and whatnot. Whatever. But if he's leaking information like that, he better not do it the day after, the game after, or the days after a game where you had 2 critical mistakes that cost your team points. 3, if you count the penalty that he took, too, on the Goddard. He made 3 crucial mistakes that took points off the board, or potential points off the board. 3. If we get 2 scores on his 3 mistakes, all of a sudden, we're not getting smoked by the Cowboys. Maybe we win this game. Maybe. Marshawn's not a fan of my Howie Roseman opinion. He fumbled the ball 3 times last week. Well, some of the mistakes that happen are kind of like compounding mistakes that happened from the beginning of this season with the coordinator choices, with the draft pick choices, where he allocated money. Sure, yeah, he didn't fumble the ball, but he did fumble in certain things that he has done recently. I saw somebody else say this, Scott. They're not the 2022 Eagles, they're the 2022 Vikings. And I strongly, strongly laughed when I saw it on Twitter, I think, the first time that somebody said this. And I don't know who originated this comment here, but I've seen it now a few times. And I disagree. I mean, because Jalen Hurts is not Kirk Cousins. I also saw somebody saying Jalen Hurts is just Colin Kaepernick with a bigger contract. And that made me laugh too. Man, everybody's jumping off. I get it. 2022 Vikings, maybe in the sense where they win a lot of games and get knocked out of the playoffs really easily. Maybe. You are right, Philip. Again, with the Philip. The biggest issue is defensive backfield. It is. And it's the roster, and it's how it was constructed. Now, I'm not saying we should have brought back Chauncey Gardner-Johnson or not. I'm not. But once you knew you weren't bringing him back, maybe you needed to draft Brian Branch. Maybe what we saw that I've been talking to for a while, Jalen Hurts' legs make the offensive line look better. The defensive line sacks last year made the cornerbacks look better than they were. Howie Roseman's paid to see the big picture. Maybe Howie Roseman should have seen that Darius Slay and James Bradbury maybe both shouldn't have been brought back at their age. And big cap hits committed to those 2 guys at their age. Maybe he should have looked elsewhere. Now, injuries have caused a problem. Maddox, McPherson, Nakobe Dean, Zach Cunningham, Justin, a lot of injuries. But almost every single one of those injured players this year, Howie Roseman should have known they were going to get injured. Because not one of the guys that got injured this year on our defense in the backfield, the linebackers and back, haven't not been injured and missed significant time earlier in their career. Most of them have missed significant time multiple times throughout their career. So Howie Roseman not seeing the injury picture, just thinking, well, they'll be healthy here, is a problem. Howie Roseman missed one of the tackles. No, but Howie Roseman drafted a bunch of guys or signed a bunch of guys or brought in a bunch of guys that are scared of tackling, that aren't good enough. Him committing no money to the linebackers. Those Depot touchdowns, a lot of them got credited to Nicholas Morrow. Nicholas Morrow is a starting linebacker on this team. Wasn't even on. He got cut at cutdown day for the Eagles, and now he's playing a major role. The fact that we had 2 weeks ago 3 practice squad guys starting or dressed as linebacker, him, Ellis, and Ben Van Summer. That's on Howie. So you see, the thing is, I'm not blaming Howie for the in-game mistakes. I'm blaming Howie for building this team the way he did. And again, I'm not calling for Howie to be fired. I'm not calling Howie the final problem. In fact, he wouldn't be one of my power rankings. Brian Johnson would be 10 of my 10 biggest issues. Howie Roseman would probably be somewhere in that 3 to 6 range on the issues. Missed tackles would be an issue. Sean Desai would be an issue. But to just completely ignore that this team is Howie's team, that Howie has the final say over Nick Sirianni on who plays and who doesn't, that's a problem. If you don't see that Howie Roseman has some blame going his way right now. When Steichen left, who was available for the Eagles to hire outside of Brian Johnson? I forget all the names that were available, Marshawn. I won't lie. The Eagles gave Brian Johnson the job before. I mean, I think they interviewed others, but it was pretty much Brian Johnson's job right from the get-go because of multiple reasons. One, they assumed that the connection that he has with Jalen Hurts for life would work. Brian Johnson would have gotten an offensive coordinator job somewhere else if we didn't give it. They were worried about losing Brian Johnson, and rightfully so. Brian Johnson is still going to get a head coaching interview or 2 or 3 this offseason. And I would not be shocked if Brian Johnson's a head coach next year. Okay? But they basically anointed him the guy as soon as Shane Steichen left because they didn't want to lose him. But yet they lost Denard Wilson, their cornerback coach, because they didn't want to promote him. And look at the difference in our secondary this year to last year. And look at the Ravens, where he's at now, their secondary from last year to this year. We kept the wrong guy, maybe. Maybe not. Because again, like I said, Brian Johnson, if Marshawn's going to tell me how he didn't miss tackles, well, Brian Johnson didn't cause the drop passes. Brian Johnson didn't cause the fumbles either. So if you're not going to blame Howie Roseman, then we can't blame Brian Johnson. If you're not going to blame Howie Roseman, we can't blame Sean Desai. You can only blame the players if you're not going to blame Howie Roseman. I don't think Brian Johnson's calling plays. I think it's a passing game coordinator, Kevin Petula, and the Eagles are scapegoating Brian Johnson. I don't know if they're scapegoating Brian Johnson, Mr. I think he is calling the plays. And if Kevin Petula is really, if you're right on this, that's a problem. Because Petula will probably be the offense coordinator next year if Brian Johnson gets fired. Possibly. But I think Brian Johnson's calling the plays. But what I think is Nick Sirianni is saying, you've got 100 plays. Today, we're only going to call these 50. In this situation, you're going to call these 3. In this situation, Nick Sirianni is saying, here's the plan. You know, it's like one of those books. Well, if this happens, turn to page 37. Or if you want this to happen, turn to page 39. One of those, adventure books. Brian Johnson's got the adventure in front of him from Nick Sirianni and says, in every situation, this is where you go. Call one of these plays. So I think Nick Sirianni needs to come under more fire than Brian Johnson for the offensive scheme. And again, these long developing plays, these boring vanilla offense, the lack of motion. We're last in the league in pre-snap motion. It's on Nick Sirianni. And it's on the players for not executing it. This offense isn't that much different than last year. There are some different pieces, mainly at running back, but this offense is pretty much the exact same as last year. And it's just not effective because there are a hell of a lot more mistakes happening this year. Drops, interceptions, fumbles, poor blocking. A lot more mistakes this year than last year. Brian Johnson getting a pass and Howie getting blamed is asinine. But why? I'm not blaming Howie Roseman solely. But if you're going to say that Howie Roseman's not missing tackles, how can you say Brian Johnson is to blame because and not say that he's the one fumbling the ball, he's the one dropping the ball, Marshawn? Like you can't deflect blame off of Howie, but not off of Brian Johnson. You can't deflect it off of Howie to the players, but not deflect it off of Brian Johnson to the players. It's the same thing. We're both doing the same thing with different people. Without AJ Brown, this team would be it wouldn't be as good. That's pretty obvious. We were slobbering at the fact that he made all these signings with very little cap. Now we should have signed better players, should have drafted. Well, hindsight's 2020, Marshawn. That's all we're doing right now. We're looking back in hindsight at what's happened with this team. Bro, this is Cilio level ranting. No, I'm not ranting. There's just not enough comments coming in for me to attack. That's it. I guess you guys don't like. You guys think I'm just blaming everything on Howie Roseman. I'm not. I'm saying it's part of the puzzle. And I'm saying that why is he void of being criticized when everybody else is okay? Good morning, Mitchie Pooh, and good morning, Reality. Check how you guys doing this morning. Fam, you just said you're not blaming Howie, but you're not, but now you're not blaming anyone. Oh, hold on a second. You're putting words in my mouth here. I'm saying that everybody needs to be blamed, not just Brian Johnson. If you go through social media, if you go through content creators, shows, everybody is talking nonstop that it's Brian Johnson's fault and Brian Johnson's offense. He is the scapegoat for the last 2 weeks of losses. When it's so much more than just Brian Johnson. I'm trying to bring different ideas on some of the reasons why we are struggling the last couple weeks. Brian Johnson has all of these plays at his disposal and somehow calls a bubble screen to Julio. Well, Julio hasn't gotten a play in 2 weeks now, has he? I don't even think he's gotten targets in the last 2 weeks. And the bubble screens do set up the deep balls sometimes, just saying. On a side note, trust me, you don't want to see this team. No one's saying that this team's going to be without him. Personnel, not scheme. Where are all the RPOs? The RPOs have kind of disappeared for sure, without a doubt. They're not run as much, and some of that is because Jalen Hurts isn't running as much or as effective as he has in past. Who is paying for all these players how he should have gotten? Let's not forget how Hurts' contract hinders signing top-tier players. Again, Jalen Hurts' contract does not hinder them because he's minimally against the cap this year. Next year, he's like 10th on this team against the cap. So his cap hits don't start hitting until 2025 or 2026 significantly. And by then, Howie will just restructure the contract. So Jalen's contract isn't really hindering this team as much as people want to believe. I'll say this. If history has told us anything, it's that Howie will, 1, correct his mistake, 2, move on from contracts, 3, a Super Bowl ring, only get you a 3-year extension, heads will roll. And this, Marshawn, this is the most accurate statement of them all. So far, 33 minutes into this show, this is without a doubt the most accurate thing you can say, that I can say, and that we will 100%. He will correct his mistake. He's done that plenty of times. He has no problem taking on a big dead hit. Obviously, the Jalen Hurts, the Carson Wentz contract, the biggest at the time dead cap hit any team had ever faced. And we still got to the playoffs facing, I think it was like something like 30% of our cap was being used by a dead cap for Carson Wentz, who wasn't even on this team. And we still made the playoffs. So we know that. A Super Bowl ring doesn't get you anything in this city. The NFL, not for long. It's pretty much the Eagles' motto, especially with coaches. Heads will roll. He will. He has no problem. He has no problem making the tough decisions. Again, I am not trying to make this all about Howie Roseman. I'm trying to bring another idea into the puzzle, another reason why we've struggled the last 2 weeks. And if anything, I've created this question, this topic, to prove only that Brian Johnson's not the only reason why we're struggling. And I don't know why I'm standing up for Brian Johnson so much this week. I don't. because I don't think he's anything special right now. I don't. But I feel like Eagles Nation has kind of gotten on this. They always pick one guy, Eagles Nation, one guy to blame for everything, every year, winning years and losing years. One guy is always the team's scapegoat. And Brian Johnson's it. And I don't think it's fair to him because I don't think he's the root of all problems here. I think it's a culmination of many issues. And like I said, if some of the mistakes get cleaned up, we got a lot of different results on our hands. This is the same offense and players from last year, except for Swift. I don't care who is to blame. This offense should be getting 28 points per game, plus anything less is shameful. Don't care whose fault. Get it right. But and see, here's the thing, and I'll pull up another tweet of ESP's, everybody's favorite, Elliot Shore Parks. And maybe that's my problem. I'm listening to him too much lately and following him. Points per game, we're still 6th in the league. And that's after not even scoring a touchdown last week. All right. The last 2 weeks have dropped us. We were a top 5 team. We were averaging right around 28 points per game last year, or 2 weeks ago, before the San Francisco game. We were still right around that 28 points per game mark. Just so you know, reality check. But right now, we are the 6th best points per game offense, 4th points per drive, 8th yards per game, 3rd first down team, offensively speaking, 3rd third down offense, 10th in red zone offense, but we're 18th in turnovers. So you look at all those numbers, we're 18th in turnover, but we're top 10 everywhere else, top 5 in a lot of categories offensively speaking. We cut down on the turnovers, which are not Brian Johnson's fault. All of a sudden, this is a top 3 offense. So we can't blame anybody else for the missed tackles on defense other than the players. But on offense, we're not blaming the players for lack of execution. And this is where I'm having my problem. Didn't Howie flip Carson Wentz into A.J. Smitty and something like that? He did, something like that. He got so much out of Carson Wentz. It still to this day boggles my mind how much he got for Carson Wentz. And the fact that he was able to build a playoff team paying Carson Wentz to play elsewhere. So much. Well, actually, I don't know if they paid him. Just a dead cap hit. I don't know how that all works. But now hindsight's 2020. Look, again, I can't believe how many people, hold on, we'll get back to that. I can't believe how many people are willing to support Howie Roseman blindly right now. I really can't. And I'm a Howie Roseman guy. I am. Like a Paul Heyman guy, I'm a Howie Roseman guy. But to think that he's void of criticism based off of the performance these last 2 weeks is just shocking to me. Like at what point did Howie Roseman become this untouchable guy? I have no idea. I'm shocked. I really am shocked at this. It is fair. Is it fair to us to watch Brian Johnson abandon the run in his play call? Now, he's abandoned the run massively the last 2 weeks, but we've fallen behind. Their game plan is to pass the ball, to set up the run, then run the ball in the second half. Well, they've been so far behind, but we were down 24-6 at halftime to Dallas. But you're not going to start running the ball when you're down 3+ scores. It's just not going to happen. So, yeah, they're abandoning the run, but because the game flow does. Now, yeah, sure, we all want to see them run the ball early, but that's just not what the philosophy of the organization is. The philosophy is you paid your quarterback $250 million. You're going to pass the ball and set up the run. I don't like it, but that's their team philosophy. And that isn't Brian Johnson's fault. That's Nick Sirianni's fault. That's Howie Roseman's fault. That's Jeffrey Lurie's fault. Their philosophy as an organization is to pass, and then run. That's not Brian Johnson. Brian Johnson's doing his job. I can understand some defensive struggles because of personnel change and some players leaving. But there's no excuse for this offense dropping off like it has. It's unacceptable. But again, we have faced so many top 5 defenses these last few weeks. Like, what do you expect? Do you really expect top 3, top 5 defenses to give up 35 points a game? We're playing the best of the best teams the last 5 weeks. All teams that are playoff bound the last 5 weeks. We've won a majority of these games. Some of them not pretty. And we've lost a couple of them. Not pretty. The defensive scheme, the defensive personnel, the defensive everything is to blame. The offense is to blame for lack of execution. But let's also tip our cap to all these great teams that we're facing. That these great teams played a role in stopping us. They weren't just going to roll over and let us do anything. So there's a little bit of that too. Howie Roseman and Jake Elliott are the only people who did their job this year. I disagree, Marshawn. Jake Elliott's terrible. No, I'm just kidding. Jake Elliott got out kicked by some other guy, some soccer player on Sunday. Just kidding. Jake Elliott's the man. But Howie Roseman, we thought did his job, and we were duped. Everybody's complaining about Darius Slay and James Bradbury not being good enough anymore. Well, that's on Howie Roseman. The linebackers, on Howie Roseman. The safeties, on Howie Roseman. Just saying. Phil is bad-mouthing. I am not bad-mouthing Howie. And Kenny Gainwell, look, Kenny Gainwell, he stinks. Phil laughed at me when I asked what team Flacco was on. I still can't. I almost lost in playoff fantasy football game, not playoffs, the round, the last week of the play. Somebody that had to start Joe Flacco. Almost lost. I need Smitty to hold out this offseason. We'll see if this fan base in Howie is strong. We don't want no holdouts. Holdouts are drama. We already got too much drama this week. We all know these games are rigged, but we keep complaining about the outcome. Like it's Vince McMahon versus Stone Cold Steve Austin. The greatest rivalry in wrestling history. Stone Cold versus Vince McMahon. You're fired. The greatest rivalry of all time. Kenny Gainwell should have been duct taped to the locker 6 weeks ago. His locker 6 weeks ago. Oh man, yeah, yeah. I think people are so worried because this is shit that should have happened week 5 or 6, not 14. But I'm not hitting the panic button yet. These two games were not Eagles football, and I think that's fair. I think we're all panicking far too much. Reality check. The fact that we went through that tough stretch of the schedule 4-2, that's a win in my book. We still control our destiny in the division. We almost control our destiny. We just need the 49ers to lose one more game in the conference. Far too much panicking, far too quickly. Far too much finger pointing, far too much blaming of everybody. And the only thing that I don't think people are overreacting to, and maybe not reacting to enough, is the locker room drama that starts. Who's the one that's going to lock down this locker room and be like, yo, whoever's leaking, and you know who you are, needs to shut your mouth? Who's going to be that guy that stands up and calls out the locker room fractures and holds it back together? I'm really curious. Is it Kelsey? Is it Hurts? Is it Cox or Graham? I don't know. A.J. Brown, drop and turnover. Smitty drops and don't forget Smitty had a fumble too. Third down average are all momentum-changing moments. Change 2 of those moments. Exactly. And you could do the same thing in the 49ers game. You could pick 1 or 2 lack of execution moments that change the momentum of games. And the third down, I mean, everyone wants to talk about how tired the defense is of the Eagles. Well, get off the field on third down. Now, I don't know what it is now. But 2 weeks ago, we were talking about it. They were 23 of 33 teams were converting on third down and fourth down. 23 of 33. Now, it changed after last week, but it wasn't much better. Crazy. Howie brought in Kevin Byard. Did he not, after seeing Terrell Edmonds, who was available from the trade for it? Well, first off, bringing in Terrell Edmonds was a mistake. And there was a big gap in between Edmonds being cut and Kevin Byard being here. Now, let's not act like Kevin Byard's been this all-pro safety for us. He was the best of what was available. He's been okay. He hasn't done anything special. You wouldn't have had to make that move if you brought in Brian Branch. Again, hindsight, 2020. But I was saying Terrell Edmonds wasn't good enough to make this team before the season even started, just so you know. We don't control anything. We can't even control the locker room to leak. Look, the locker room leaks really are the only thing that I'm really, truly worried about right now. Honestly. I'm not panicking. I'm chill as you know what. Take it easy. Look. Man, it's a shame. It's a shame that we're even here at this point. that we even have to have this conversation. Marsh, I say 28-7 Seahawks. It's Sixers season now. Well, we might be getting joined here shortly. I haven't checked my messages from Justin yet. We might be getting Justin Crosby on here soon. Talk a little Sixers for a few minutes. I do want to get my power rankings up in a few minutes as well, and let you guys know where I think the NFL is as a whole. Terrell Edmonds was terrible. I said it before the season. Such a hothead, Marshawn, just like Sonny. Always got to get it back to a movie. Every show, we got to get at least one movie reference in. Um, and please, AJ, stop calling dudes old because that old dude showed up. Yeah, absolutely. Segal, what's up, my man? Phil, good morning. How does one not point fingers at Sean Desai, given the Philadelphia Eagles' near record-setting abysmal defense? Well, see, that's the thing. Like, I've tried pointing fingers at Sean Desai. I have. But everyone keeps pointing at Brian Johnson. And I don't know why all of a sudden I'm becoming the front man for the Support Brian Johnson fan club. But I feel like I'm the only one out there giving him any benefit of the doubt. Sean Desai has had a much worse season coaching than Brian Johnson has. Even though his personnel isn't up to snuff and he's had more injuries. But he's done a much worse job than Brian Johnson. Super Bowl or bust. I won't be satisfied with a second round elimination in the playoffs. A loss in the NFC Championship game, I can stomach. Yeah, it depends. It depends on how we get there. Depends on how we get to the playoffs. What position we finish in. Like, seeding doesn't matter in week 5, but right now it does. You need to win the division, and you would prefer to get that home field advantage throughout the whole playoffs and get the number 1 seed. You really would. The Eagles got to flip the switch quickly. They do. A second round elimination would be the championship game if we get the bye. But a second round elimination, if we don't get the bye, I don't know if it's acceptable. I don't know. A loss in the championship game. I mean, we won't be happy as fans. The players won't be happy with that. But most teams would consider that a success, be one of the final 4 teams. Big picture. But yeah, it's Super Bowl or bust. Because we were duped into thinking that this was a Super Bowl winning team. And it still might be. And you know what? Winning cures all. 4 weeks from now, we might be talking a totally different story on this show. From Orlando, Florida, where I will be at the end of the season for a week. But, we'll cross that bridge when we get there. I think that internet meme of Hurts, someone should say something. Speaking of internet memes, did you guys see the video someone took? I know we touched on the Shohei Ohtani contract and the deferral of it a little bit. Someone edited a Wolf of Wall Street video with Leonardo DiCaprio's character talking about how illegal and how much he was just manipulating money and cheating money to make the contract work. And then when it's time to pay him, just sell the team. And then we don't have to worry about it. It was hilarious. And I recommend everyone going and looking. It was really well done. And whoever did the voiceover work for it sounded like Leo for sure. Kevin Byard, been the best covered D-back we've had all year. Branch wasn't going to play here, Philip. When did this team trust rookies? Jalen Carter doesn't even start on this team. Kevin Byard has not been great. He might be the best of a bad bunch. And Brian Branch probably would have played if he was drafted here. I know they don't trust rookies. They ease rookies in. Jalen Carter doesn't start. I don't think it matters. I think Jalen Carter does start sometimes. Depends on who the team is. But Jalen Carter plays enough snaps that he's basically a starter. I don't think it matters on defense who's out there for the first play as the starter. It's who plays the most snaps. Now, this past week against Dallas, Jalen Carter's snap count did go down. I'm not sure why. Jordan, I think it might be even the first time all year that he outsnapped Jordan Davis, or Jordan Davis outsnapped him, which was kind of a surprise. I'm Clemenza. I stay loyal to the Godfather. I'm the Godfather right here. I am not Tessio. I am the boss. I'm the family boss. All right. I don't answer to nobody. Well, I do. I answer to everybody. Maybe Brian Johnson gave Phil the 5. I wish Brian Johnson. Brian Johnson deserves to. I deserve a $500 super chat from Brian Johnson because of how much I'm supporting him today. And I don't know. Like I said, somehow magically I became the Brian Johnson fan club captain here today, and I'm not sure how or why. Watch your carbs, Marshawn. You might have a heart attack. I'm done with NBA for a while. That tournament left a bad taste. You know what left a bad taste in my mouth? And if Justin Trump's in, we'll talk about it. The Draymond Green ejection last night. Like, how's that dude still in the NBA? I don't know. You're right, Phil. Sean is worse than Brian by far, but I still expect more from both sides. So even though I don't blame Brian, he's not safe. And I think this is a fair, objective way to look at it. That the way we've played the last 2 weeks, nobody's safe from criticism. But for some reason, a majority of Eagles Nation is picking just one name, Brian Johnson, out of a hat and saying we are going to blame him for everything. And I think that's wrong. I think there's plenty of blame to go around from the top, Howie Roseman, straight down to the bottom, the last guy on the 53-man roster. There's blame to go everywhere. Just call me Orlando. Just call me Florida Phil. Florida Phil will be back in a few weeks. How do you say he's had more injuries than Brian, but the Psy has done a worse job? I don't think I'm backtracking on anything. He has had injuries. But you know what? He's still got to put the players in a better position. He's still got to have a better scheme. Like, there's no Nick Sirianni meddling in his affairs. This is 100% Sean Desai's defense. And Sean Desai has clearly not been successful in the past as a defensive coordinator or defensive assistant. So I don't know why Sean Desai gets a pass. I don't. You're not covering the slot properly. You're not covering tight ends. Your linebackers are not in the right place ever. Your safeties are never. There's still miscommunication constantly between cornerbacks and safeties on the field. There was a clear play, and I forget now. I talked about it a couple days ago. One of the big film reviewer guys broke down a play where the slot corner broke in because he forgot that there was going to be safety help there, and he got beat on a double move by Ceedee Lamb. I think it was Robbie and Blankenship maybe, or Robbie and Byard, I forget. Miscommunication. How is miscommunication from defensive players not Sean Desai's fault? He's the one coaching these guys to know to be in the right position. Unimaginative play design and a consistent lack of creativity in the offensive scheme fell squarely on the shoulders of Johnson. Yeah, but we're not questioning Brian Johnson without the drops. We're not questioning Brian Johnson without the fumbles. This offense is a top 10 D offense with a top 20 mistake-ridden offense, if that makes sense. That's what I'm trying to say. We've definitely been duped. See, I think we have been, to an extent. Sirianni is arrogant, self-centered coach and stubborn. Third blowout in our schedule is on our schedule. See, that's the negativity creeping in, and I get it. I understand why people are feeling this way. And Seattle's no cakewalk. It's a tough morning or tough game on the schedule for sure. And they're on a 3 or 4 game losing streak, so they got to get off the snide too. We're on a 2 game losing streak. They're on a 4, I think. So something's got to give. Somebody's got to win on Monday night. So it's gonna be tough. And our fractured argument here is making Cowboys fans so happy. Cowboys fans are riding high right now, and we're low. And Dallas just loves it right now. Dallas fans just are on cloud 9 right now. And you know what? Good for you guys. I love you. I love it. Armand, bad talking coach. It's okay. Everybody is critical. You could be critical of everybody. Eagles fans always complain about the players' money like Big Worm from Friday. Got to mix up the movie reference. All right, gotcha. Yeah, I try to bring other movie references in. Some of the movie references I can reference from time to time, I don't think you guys would even know. Nolan Smith barely plays here, but now he's a bust. No one said he was a bust. You find an exact comment from me saying Nolan Smith was a bust, and I will apologize. Never said he was a bust. And yes, Howie was never going to draft Brian Johnson or Brian Branch. All right. Obviously, he will never draft the safety in the first round. I know that. But I never said Nolan Smith was a bust. Ever. You didn't hear me say it because I didn't say it. I know the reason why we drafted Nolan Smith. Just so you know. Don't put words in my mouth. That's for sure. Bills will DDT the Dallas Cowboys. We'll see. Maybe. Bills are playing good football 1 week now. K1, it wasn't a heart attack that killed Clemenza. It's hard to cope if you can scapegoat a particular guy or issue. Yeah, I guess. I guess I get what you're trying to say there. Howie's the only one left because he's always made money for his partner. That's for sure. Howie Roseman is safe. He's the only safe one here because he does always make this team money. That's a fact. The fact is the roster is full of boomers. I don't know about that. Marshawn, leave our elderly corners alone. They're in wheelchairs out there. Man. Brian Johnson put everyone in the right position. Sean Desai does not get a pass, but this offense has been 80% healthy all year. But the one touchdown we scored last week was from the defense. But again, is Brian Johnson the one fumbling the ball? Is Brian Johnson the one dropping passes in the end zone? Is Brian Johnson the one that's making all these mistakes? No. But yet we can't blame Sean Desai because players are missing tackles. So it's the players' fault on defense for making mistakes and lack of execution, but it's not the players' fault for lack of execution on offense. That is my point here, Marshawn. You're blaming the players for lack of execution on defense, but not the coordinator. But you refuse to blame the players for lack of execution on the offense. Let's blame the coach for that. That's the contradiction here. Okay? Sean Desai sucks, but Brian Johnson sucks more with the talent he has to work with. But Howie should have been better. You guys just disagree. Look, we disagree on this, Marshawn. I just think you don't see what I'm trying to say here. That everybody's to blame, not one person. Not one person. But we're giving Desai a pass. For some random reason, Sean Desai is getting a pass here. And I don't get it. And that's my problem. We do have the same record as the Cowboys. And maybe a logical Cowboys fan realizes that. That this season, we still are favored to finish ahead of the Cowboys. I think it boils down to what you talked about a few weeks ago, execution. And that's definitely a whole team problem from coach. Exactly. This is all I'm talking about. This whole season, this whole story, this whole conversation is about execution. And the team is not executing as a whole. There's no one player to blame. There's no one coach to blame. There's everybody to blame. But all everybody wants to do is point to Brian Johnson, Brian Johnson, Brian Johnson. That's it. Fire Brian Johnson, bring in Frank Reich right now. Everything is solved. That doesn't solve anything. We just got to execute better, top to bottom. Your sister was telling me, stop. Phil, the Eagles' second half offense output speaks more to the talent on the roster than the quality of the coaching performance. Well, the offense hasn't put out anything lately. So, yeah, execution. Why do I feel like everybody's freaking out all because we just lost to Dallas and now we are tied? Is this all because you don't want Dallas to take first because we won't hear the end of it? Panic. It's not just it's the last 2 weeks. Everyone's panicking. Everyone is freaking out. Because it's not like we just lost the last 2 weeks. We got smoked the last 2 weeks. Let's be honest. I mean, they were two of the worst performances we've seen in ages. No doubt about it. No doubt. There's no way you could say that the Eagles performed well the last few weeks. We haven't. It's been bad. Make sure you guys are hitting the like button. Clearly not enough likes on this video. I think I only saw 9 likes on YouTube, 7 on Facebook. Please, if you're watching, hit the like button for me. Even if you don't agree with my topic of today, hit that like button for me. 1st and 10, incomplete pass. 2nd and 10, run play for 2 yards. 3rd and 8, force the ball down the field, and Jalen will be ran down, and he throws the ball out of bounds. So you're describing it, and I get it. I know what you're doing here, Marshawn. You're blaming this on Brian Johnson. And sometimes this is Brian Johnson's fault. But was that incomplete pass on 1st down a drop pass? On 2nd down, yeah, the run for 2 yards wasn't good. On 3rd down, forced the ball downfield. Was that a drop pass from AJ? Because A.J. Brown dropped a deep pass, for 30-some yards that would have put us in the red zone. Was that a drop pass? We're not complaining about this play calling scheme if those mistakes don't happen. Check Phillip is getting. Look, I'm getting a little worked up, sure. Because I don't think people understand where I'm getting at here. Eagles should let me run their draft. I want a Bijan Robinson, Zay Flowers at 23. And I want a Tyler Lindenbloom in 22. I forgot about Tyler Lindenbloom. I did. I really did. What would he be doing here, though? Because we didn't need a center yet. Zay Flowers, I don't know about him. Bijan, Yeah, you're not drafting Bijan. That's a mistake. Still a mistake in Atlanta. Is it Marshawn as in Lynch or Martian as in my favorite Martian? Stigell is curious. How do you want us to say your name, Marshawn? Is it Martian or Marshawn? Give us an explanation there. Brian Johnson has dirt on Phil. Yeah, he knows he's threatened to delete my social security number, which would probably be better for me anyway. Yeah, he's got those pictures of me, you know, slinging the pizza and all the other day. That's for sure. Philip has a fever, and the only cure is a hard. Oh, is it hard reset time? It is. I'm having so much fun defending myself for a change today. That because that's what I want to do is just defend myself all day long. I forgot. Yes, you are watching Trending in the AM right here on Philadelphia Sports Network. We're live, Facebook and YouTube. Make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you hit the follow button, the subscribe button. Turn the notifications on. Share this show out to continue the growth of this great morning show. I am Phil Stiefel, your host of the show, and you can find me everywhere on social media at Bearded Knowledge. If I'm there, I'm there. And we continue on with the comments. Everyone knows things can turn around in a week, right? Good teams have bad games. Even the greats have bad games. You could still win the Super Bowl in second or third seat. We will be fine. We are 10-3. Quit crying. I think we just ended the show right there with the NFL reality checks comment. I mean, it's pretty much it. We could turn it around. Next week, totally different story. If we beat Seattle, hit a line from Friday. Get your mind out of the gutter. I don't. Yeah, Dallas could have the 1 seed, and the demise is inevitable in the playoffs. Yeah, Dallas will just fall apart in the playoffs, supposedly. At some point, maybe they won't, though. I don't know. I'll flip out when this team gets eliminated. Until then, shit happens. As long as we win when it matters most, I am cool. Yeah, I think it's a fair way to look at it. Reality check, it is. Way before the drops happened, this play calling has been bad. Are watching the same game, or we're still stuck in 2017's magical season. Maybe I'm stuck in last year's magical season. I don't know. But see, the thing is, like, you're picking one thing to blame and not open to realizing all the reasons. Because there are, again, I am not saying the play calling's been great. The play calling has not been great. What the problem is that the execution of the play calling. Maybe the play calling was bad last year too. Who knows? But the execution was there. Mistakes on the field have a ripple effect, and the Eagles have been making a lot of mistakes on the field, and the ripple effects are showing. Does Howie call the offense with 3 very good wide receivers, great O-line, and Hurts? Yeah. Howie does actually have a lot more influence on the offense than people realize. Still not premature. Never. Right when I'm right when I want to be. So it's Martian from Mars, who's cousins with Marshawn. So it's both. I love it. Oh, man. Philip wants to settle all family business this AM. Now, I like to keep the open-ended business because it makes you come back for more the next day. I'm not going to agree to Marshawn's opinions. It's going to bring Marshawn back into the conversation tomorrow when I've got more ideas for topics, ways to change the conversation, but have the same conversation. I've got more info to do. I got more ways to spin the conversation. I don't know why this week, but when I sat down on Monday afternoon, I came up with a lot of great ways to spin this conversation this week. So I got more topics, more ways to do it. And I already know how tomorrow's show is going to go. Completely different, but talking the same thing. Because, you got to keep them hooked. You got to keep them coming back for more. That's what we do here. We keep them coming back for more. That's what we do. And that's what I'm okay with. Philip needs more coffee. And I've been butchering. I don't know. Maybe it's just this Costco coffee brand isn't as good. Coffee just hasn't been good this week. Too strong, not strong enough. I can't get the right mix on this coffee. This Costco branded coffee that the boss bought. I just can't get behind it. I don't know why. But anyway, and I need better coffee. Coffee is the key to every good morning for me. Maybe the defense has a lot of injuries because they can't get off the field on third down and they play too many downs. For sure. I mean, if anybody doesn't look at the Eagles' third down defense and how bad they are at it, and wants to make excuses for anybody, Sean Desai or the players on defense, then they're just lying to themselves. This defense is atrocious. The fact that we are 10-3 with this defense, the way it is insanity. The offense might be broken. The offense might have issues, but the offense is not why we lost the last 2 weeks. The offense, the defense is. The inability to stop Debo, the inability to stop the Cowboys as a whole, the inability. This is on the defense more so than the offense. A bad cup of coffee, absolutely, and that's why I've had such bad days this week. Bad cups of coffee pretty much every day this week. Even the one time I turned the Keurig on instead of brewing a pot, the Keurig brewed a bad cup of coffee. I'm on a bad luck string of coffee this week, and it's showing in my work. See, Marshawn, I just made an excuse for our differing opinions. I'm blaming the coffee on it today. Someone that Michael Clay has been the Philadelphia Eagles' best coordinator this season. How troubling is that? Also, the supposed Jeff Julian Laurie analytics department directive was somewhat problematic for me. Well, first off, Michael Clay has improved. We all asked for Michael. We all were curious why Michael Clay was the only coordinator that was kept. Why was he kept? We had an awful special teams last year. Special teams has been good this year. Better. Britton Covey has become one of the best punt returners in football. Our coverage team is better. Not great, but better. We finally found a punter that could do everything, including throw passes. Talamade. Also, Phil, I'm not worried because the two teams who just beat us went through their slumps at the beginning and middle of the year. Yeah, we're the 49ers. Were the 49ers crying and calling for their coordinators' heads when they lost 3 games in a row to mid-teams? Probably not. Were the Cowboys fans? Well, the Cowboys fans were calling for everybody's head when they lost to the Cardinals and some of their losses early. Because that's just, Cowboys fans were calling for Trey Lance to start over Dak Prescott. Now Cowboys fans are calling Dak Prescott the league MVP. You think we're fickle here on this show and an Eagles Nation? Man, go join Cowboys Nation for a week or two and see how fickle they are. Man, the Eagles are greater than the 49ers. I mean, Matt Jatter, you said they were frauds, the 49ers. Well, 2 weeks ago, they didn't look like frauds. I think Phil's getting a new coffee maker. Nah, no new coffee maker. I just gotta do a better job. I just gotta buy better coffee. But coffee is the key to everything. I guess we're not getting Justin Crosby today, so we might not get too much into the Sixers. I'm going to put up my power rankings here. We're going to get into that for a second. Where are my power rankings? Why did my power rankings come off the screen? Get my power rankings back up on the screen there so I can share the screen and you guys get to see where I rank everybody. How far did I drop the Eagles? I've had the Eagles at number 1 in the power rankings for quite some time now. Why did that not go up there? Huh. Let's remove that. I don't know what happened there. There we go. There are the power rankings for this week. Where did I drop the Eagles, who have been 1 for so long? I dropped them to 4. I did put the 49ers at number 1 on the power rankings. They are the hottest team in the NFL. They're playing the best football at the moment. They're unstoppable. Debo Samuel is healthy and playing great. Christian McCaffrey, the defense is great. Everything's working well for San Francisco right now. They are number 1. The Dallas Cowboys are number 2. They are playing great football right now as well, obviously. The Baltimore Ravens, I still think are beatable, but I put them number 3 and the Eagles number 4. I still think the Eagles, everybody else below the Eagles, have no chance at really making a deep playoff run. The Dolphins, I think, are too flawed. Tyreek Hill might be hurt. The Jaguars, I think, are too flawed. The Chiefs are falling to pieces right now. I still think the Chiefs are better come playoff time than a lot of the teams ahead of them in the power rankings. But right now, I'm just going to throw them there. I had to drop them. The Lions, I had to drop them. Lions aren't making any noise in the playoffs. The Bills got it together last week against the Chiefs. I still don't really. It just goes to show, like, I could literally have done Lions, Bills, Broncos in any order. I could have done Bills, Broncos, Browns, Colts, Steelers, Texans, name 5 other teams in the 8, 9, 10 range, and there's no argument to be made. But this is where I got it right now on the power rankings. This is where I've put it right now, giving some teams some credit just to do it. The Lions are probably frauds. And my man Jason Sullivan from Detroit, my man, he tells me that all the time, that his Lions are frauds. The Lions are also K1. I don't know why I ever bet the Lions, because anytime I bet the Lions, I get beat. Every time I bet the Lions, it's an automatic L. And it was again this weekend. And I don't know why I keep doing it. Well, have a good day. Oh, Rhea, got to check out. Well, have a good day, my man. I appreciate you every single morning. I think I'm pretty spot on. DeVito. Yeah. Should I put DeVito and the Giants in the top 10 of my power rankings, Becky? You strike me as a guy that would fall in love with Tommy DeVito and his agent on the sideline. Becky, yeah, that seems like something you would think of and do, for sure. But let me know what you think, guys, on this power ranking, and girls, because Becky's always in the comments now. Where you guys think of these power rankings and where I got them. I could have dropped the Jags below the Chiefs, probably. I could have maybe not taken so much, or dropped the Chiefs so far, possibly. I want to give the Broncos credit because what are they, like 6-1 in their recent stretch? They're good. You got to give the Bills credit for beating the Chiefs, so I bumped them up. Browns defense is great, but they're not going to make much of a run with Joe Flacco. The Colts are good, but nothing great. The Steelers, I don't know. The Texans, I mean, I don't know how bad the concussion is that that CJ Stroud took. I don't know if he'll be back or not. So I got to kind of do that there with that one there. Becky, I love you. Stop screen. We're going to take that off the screen. But I think when I do these power rankings, I think it really proves a really big key thing. Just how average the NFL still is this year. No one's really separated themselves. The fact that every single week when I write my power rankings, there's a different 2 or 3 teams in it that I've got to bump out and bump back in every single week because on any given week, you just never know. Have you noticed the Eagles keep getting blown out since we retired Djax? Conspiracy theory alert. Djax stole our playbook and sold it to the Cowboys in the 90s. Yeah. Yeah, maybe. Maybe. Conspiracy alert. Don't. Why don't you create a fake Twitter account and roll it with this story? And I guarantee it'll blow up. And someone will believe it and share it out. Some major media network will blow this story up. Guarantee it. Why not? How funny is it the Browns are winning games with Dollar Tree Flacco instead of 200? Yeah, man. Well, Deshaun Watson is just an extremely overrated quarterback, in my opinion. Deshaun Watson shouldn't be playing football, probably. The Browns defense is legit. It really is. The Browns, though, I can't be confident in the Browns with Joe Flacco. I just can't. I can keep them around that 10, 11, 12 range, but I can't be realistically confident in that team with Joe Flacco. It's hilarious, though, that Joe Flacco. Didn't even know Joe Flacco was still an active player before they brought him in. T-Jax needed the money. I don't know. I don't know if T-Jax needs the money or not, but it's a funny comment. I even finished my cup of coffee with 15 minutes left to go in this show. Phil, Jeremiah Trotter Jr. in the 2024 draft. I know everybody wants to keep talking about that. And again, I have a very firm opinion of not discussing the next offseason too much until the actual season ends. I just don't know enough about Jeremiah Trotter Jr. because I am not a college football expert. I've seen people mocking him to the Eagles in the 3rd round. Sure, the Eagles could draft a linebacker in the 3rd round, possibly. But if he's a guy that goes in the 1st round, it will definitely not be. Definitely won't be an Eagle if it's a 1st round pick. Hardcore sports. What's up, Mitchy Poo, climbing in under another name. Make sure everybody's hitting that subscribe button. Make sure everybody's hitting that like button. That means a lot to me. Mitchy Poo, bouncing from count. That's what I love, man. I got everybody from other networks chiming in here. All the other networks, Hardcore, Edge of P, EOP. Everybody on the other networks always chiming in here, and I love that. It just gives me butterflies knowing that other network creators and workers are appreciating the show. Even if today is not the day that Marshawn and I have gotten along. Marshawn. Agreed. Look, yeah, I mean, Sigal, I hate looking ahead too much. It's hard not to look ahead when I bring in the Howie Roseman component to the discussion today. It's very hard not to look ahead. And we have a lot of draft picks again next year. What do we got? 1 first, 2 seconds, 2 thirds, something like that. We got four or five picks in the first 120 picks next year, depending on where we end up. It's hard not to look at. And this defense is going to need to be overhauled. But knowing Howie, our first round pick will be Lane Johnson's replacement for 2 years from now. Knowing Howie Roseman, he's going to have to draft one of the first 2 rounds of that right tackle spot. Knowing Howie Roseman, he's going to want another Fletcher Cox and Brandon Graham aging out, maybe retire after this year. He's going to draft another defensive lineman early because that's Howie's MO. We got to hope that Howie realizes his mistakes and maybe moves on to other things. That's what we got to hope. We got to hope he goes out and drafts a young stud cornerback. He's got to go out and draft a linebacker, not one injury-prone like Nakobe Dean. Look, everybody's trying to give a pass to Sean Desai because of injuries. Are we so sure that if Nakobe Dean didn't get hurt or Justin Evans didn't get hurt, that our defense would be so much better? I don't agree. Tyler Steen's going to take over the right guard spot. That doesn't fix the right tackle spot. Just saying. The right tackle spot of Lane Johnson is going to be up for grabs in 2 years. Howie Roseman doesn't have that replacement waiting in the wings. Just saying. I'm not saying I agree with it, but that's just my ballpark idea or thought process right now. That's all. Look, the injuries are a part of it, but even if the injuries didn't happen, would our defense be better under Sean Desai? Would Nakobe, because everybody, including me, keeps pointing to the linebackers first and the cornerbacks. We'll get to that in a second. Does having Nakobe Dean healthy all year, did he show anything in his limited opportunities before he got hurt each time? Does that change anything? Does it make our middle of our defense that much better? Because I'm a Nakobe Dean fan, but in the limited time he played this year, I didn't see anything that said he would change the outcome. Would Avonte Maddox not getting hurt have changed anything? Probably. Having Avonte Maddox against Ceedee Lamb and Deebo Samuel in the slot would have probably changed things. But that's on Howie Roseman. Because Avonte Maddox has been hurt every single year of his career, has missed time. I don't think he's played a full season once in his career. Now, the backup to Avonte Maddox is Zach McPherson. He got hurt. But they were transitioning him to an outside guy. All the guys we brought in, injury history. Hell, even one guy that we brought in and cut, Greedy Williams. We cut him in camp, but he was an injury-prone guy. All of Howie's defensive moves were injury-prone. But if these guys stayed healthy, just say they magically stayed healthy, would the defense have been better? And I don't know if that's the case. Nakobe has barely played. Maybe he'll never play, but maybe he will get healthy in 24 and ball out. You never know. Right, but for a team with Super Bowl aspirations, someone said earlier in the show, Super Bowl or bust. With a Super Bowl aspirations like this team had, can you really go into a season with so many question marks like that? You can't go into 2024 saying Nakobe Dean may ball out if he's healthy. You don't know. You can bring him back and have him compete for a spot with somebody you drafted in the 3rd round. Maybe. But you can't go into the season with so many question marks like they did this year. Phil, in your opinion, could Nolan Smith transition to any line? He's 235 and runs. Nah, Nolan Smith's an edge rusher, in my opinion. I don't know what he could and could not transition to in the future, but in my mind, Nolan Smith is the next version of Hassan Reddick. And he would. I've said it before, and I know you're newer to the program. I've said it before. He was brought in here to be the Hassan Reddick replacement. Hassan Reddick's going to need a restructure after this year. And if they can't agree, there's a chance Hassan Reddick gets traded away. It's not a popular opinion. It's a low chance possibility to happen. But Howie Roseman might have to move on from Hassan Reddick this year or next year or whatever. It's going to be very hard to pay him the money he's going to command. with this team. And Nolan Smith's here to be the replacement. That's what it is. Whether it's 1 year from now or 3 years from now. Nolan Smith's role will grow over years, even if Hassan Reddick stays, but he's not a middle linebacker in my position. He's just basically another Hassan Reddick. I very firmly believe that. Didn't Howie offer CJ more money than the Lions? Yes. What was he supposed to do? Sign Bradbury? Look, the CJ Gardner-Johnson situation had a bigger effect on this team than people realize. Not just him leaving and not just all the controversy, all that stuff. But if he signs the initial contract, Bradbury and or Slay are not here this year. And who knows where we go with those positions. You know, but also having CJ Gardner-Johnson here, and isn't he hurt right now? I don't even know. I think he got hurt for the year. Maybe, possibly. Him staying and taking that deal changes the offseason. And then Howie didn't get him done, gave the Chauncey Gardner-Johnson money to Bradbury. Then when CJ said, "Oh, no, I'll come back," Howie's like, the money's gone. There are some really interesting things that we don't talk about enough. The after effect of the Chauncey Gardner-Johnson situation this offseason, the after effects of that are ripple effects that we're feeling today on this defense. When doesn't this team have that's a fair point. This team always has. This is the Eagles. This is not the Flyers. This is always a Super Bowl aspiration, championship or bust team. Still a conspiracy around DJ's home in South Philly getting robbed. He was running a racketeering and bootlegging ring with Big Tom. Funny. Hometown discount for Reddick and Swift. DeAndre Swift is probably gone after this year. His contract's up after this year. But also just the simple fact that I think he wants to be used. He's not going to get paid the way he's getting used here. Swift will be gone. And they'll move on to another cheap option. Hassan Reddick wants to get paid. I don't know where it is now with all the extensions that have been given out to other players around the league. But Hassan Reddick should be paid like a top 3 edge rusher. And I don't even think he's in the top 10. He might be, but I don't think he is. I have Spot Check up. I wonder if I can switch this somehow. Contracts. I'm stuck under Eagles. I don't want to be under Eagles. I want to be on all NFL teams. I'm not sure how to switch my Spot Track around here. I'll look it up for tomorrow. But where Reddick is, contract money rank. Where is it ranked in the league? I'll have to look that up after the show. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson is out for the season. Okay. That's what I thought. I know he got hurt. I didn't know if it was for the entire season or not. But that whole missing Chauncey Gardner-Johnson deal, it's had ripple effects. Swift and Reddick both gone. I have 110% agreement on Swift being gone after this year. It's just the way how he does business. And Reddick, I don't want him gone. But it's something I've been talking about since before the season started. In training camp, we were talking about extending Hassan Reddick. And if it doesn't happen, we've been talking about Reddick and his contract situation after this season since before the season started. And it's something that is going to be I'm sure we have a very uncomfortable conversation on this show once the offseason begins on Hassan Reddick. What you pay him, can they pay him? If not, do you trade him? All that. There's going to be a very big ripple effect on Hassan Reddick come the offseason. We'll see what happens. But the Nolan Smith trade, or draft pick, was basically Howie's backup plan. Howie always has backup plans. Howie's always looking at now and the future. That's why Cam Jurgens was drafted. That's why Landon Dickerson was drafted as a backup plan to Jason Kelce. Howie's always thinking backup plans. Howie cut Slay, did he not? We are starting at CJ, no Bradbury, and no Slay. But at the time, Howie maneuvered and got 2 of the 3 back when CJ didn't want to come back. See, he did cut Darius Slay. He also cut Fletcher Cox. I am not sure if Darius Slay was cut straight up. I think I almost feel like Darius Slay was cut as a roster manipulation thing. I think Howie was bringing back Slay no matter what. It was just a matter of he needed to cut Slay for his contract where it was at and then re-sign him back had a different contract to make it work. That was a Howie cap manipulation, I think. Bradbury wasn't coming back if Chauncey Gardner-Johnson signed. No doubt about it. And who would have been our other cornerback? They would have probably gone into camp with McPherson as the starter, and he went down. So who knows? It could have been even worse. But I don't know if it could get much worse than the way Bradbury's been playing lately. So I don't know. But the C.J. Gardner-Johnson had a ripple effect that's pretty heartfelt right now. Better to let a guy walk a year early than a year late. That's our MO. And you know what? It's a smart move. We've seen the Phillies make this mistake in the past. Constantly keeping guys past their prime, giving guys past their prime bigger deals than they do, giving guys big deals based off of past performances, knowing that they can't do it. Howie Roseman doesn't do that. Howie Roseman has no problem making the tough business decision. And I know this show, I criticized Howie Roseman, but it's not because I don't like Howie Roseman. I'm a Howie Roseman guy, like I said earlier. But Howie Roseman has made some missteps this year. Yes, there's a chance Fletcher Cox, Brandon Graham, Hassan Reddick, you can add Jason Kelsey to that as well. There's going to be a lot of veterans on this team gone after this season. And Fletcher Cox, Brandon Graham, we're prepared for them with Nolan Smith, Jordan Davis, Jalen Carter. I'll throw Milton Williams might be out. He's going to be up for an extension. He might be gone. There's a lot of names that could be gone. Was Zach McPherson picked up by another team? No, he's on the IR. He's protected. And we also got Isaiah Rodgers, who we picked up from the Colts. He might be part of this secondary next year, who's under suspension for gambling. Hopefully that was another good move from Howie Roseman. I know Jeffrey and Howie are not staying pat. They are not waiting until this team hit rock bottom like Andy and Doug's final year. Oh, for sure. There's going to be, if this season ends in disappointment, which I don't even know. I got to write that down. What is disappointment? We got to dive into that because we're up against it. We got 3 minutes left. What's disappointment for the Eagles this year as a whole? We really got to think about that a little bit more. Losing Milton will hurt, but probably going to happen. Yeah, because Milton Williams, he has flashed enough to get a bigger. He's not going to get like a Javon Hargrave type deal, but he's going to get a bigger deal that the Eagles are probably. The Eagles have invested a lot in Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter, and they like having a big rotation on the defensive line. But what Milton Williams will command financially on the open market is going to be a lot. And I think Milton Williams is a free agent. Actually, he's not up for an extension like going into the last year of his deal. I think he's a free agent after this year. So you might just lose him. If he's got 1 year left on his deal, he's going to want more money. And if he does, he's going to you're going to have to do something with Milton Williams there, and you're going to have to replace him. Well, Milton Williams' pick was not lauded. No, wasn't Milton Williams the one that Howie Roseman argued with the dude Donahue over? I think it was. Milton Williams has been a solid player. Really good. And I think Milton Williams could thrive on another team in a bigger role. I really do. We only get a little taste of what Milton Williams is capable of here because of the rotational scheme that we run. But anyway, we got to start the wrap-up process of this show. We're in the final minute here of the show today. So I want to just start with saying again, thank you, everybody. His scout left Howie hanging after that pick. Yeah, it was that. It was Donahue is the guy's last name, I think. And Howie went to like high five him. We all saw the video a million times. He was pissed, but it's worked out very well. Only first round picks have the 5th year option. Yeah. So, I wasn't sure if Milton was in year 4 or year 3, so that's why I wasn't sure. It feels like that just happened last year, the disagreement between Donahue and Roseman. But yeah, Phil, I've enjoyed watching. Hey, I appreciate you tuning in, my man. Appreciate you. I appreciate everybody that tunes in daily, once a week for 5 minutes, or for all show long every day, like some of the core 12. Dickerson's contract is coming up soon as well. That's a fair point. There's money that's going to have to be made there or dealt with there. Oh my God, stop! We are not losing 28-7 to the Seahawks. We're not. We are winning. We didn't get into much Sixers talk. Maybe we'll bring the Sixers back into the conversation. I'm a little scared about tonight's game against Detroit. Detroit's lost 20 games in a row. At some point, they got to win. I hope it's not against the Sixers. It's Sixers game. Yeah. Look, we didn't get Justin. I didn't have a chance to check my messages this morning. Don't know what happened with him. We'll get him in again next week. But we're going to wrap up the show for today there. Make sure you hit the like button, the subscribe, the follow, the share. Every button you can see, hit it. Share it out. Tell a friend. Tell a neighbor. Tell one. Tell all. Trending in the AM, the number one sports show in Philadelphia, especially in the mornings, that not enough people tune into. But big things coming in the upcoming year with the show. We're going to make this show bigger and better every single day, week, and throughout the year. So I hope everybody has a great day. That one Eagles touchdown will be scored with 4 minutes left in the game. Marshawn sleeps with the fishes. You guys all think I'm sleeping with the fishes, probably the way you guys disagree with me today. I blame myself for trusting this team in big games. Yeah, we all blame ourselves. But we got to wrap it up. Everybody have a great day. Everybody have a great Monday. We'll be back tomorrow, 8 a.m., maybe some Sixers talk. Another angle to take with this, plus what is disappointment for the Eagles. I forget already who said it, but that is going to be a topic we dive into tomorrow as well. Everybody have a good day. Go Frauds. No, go Birds. We'll talk to you guys tomorrow. Go Birds.